first step for a school teacher or coach working with race walking is to develop a sound understanding of the correct technique and of the rules governing the sport. If an athlete fails to develop the required skills, not only will they perform poorly, but they may also be disqualified due to infringement of the laws. Although the rules may seem complicated, they can be summarised quite simply.
The first rule in race walking is of course the knee rule, and this is primarily the one that you need to have down pat before you can get into the races. So you need to have a good prominent heel strike with a straight leg at contact, and that has to remain straight through to what they call the vertically upright position, or where your leg is just beneath the body. The second rule is the contact rule, and the rule states that one foot has to have unbroken contact with the ground all the time. So there is a double support phase.
The technique for race walking can be broken down into 5 components, including posture, arm and shoulder action, leg action, foot action, trunk and hips. Posture is of prime importance to race walking. Poor posture leads to a loss of technique and possible infringement of the rules. Common postural faults with race walkers can include slumped, rounded shoulders or upper spine. Bending forward from the hips is another common fault with beginner walkers. To correct these faults, get the athlete to place clasped hands behind their back, pushing the back of their hands against their hips. The athlete should practice walking in this position to help them feel correct postural alignment. As with all track events, posture is crucial to ongoing development, as Craig Hilliard explains.
Posturally is the major thing you look for with any novice walker. It's absolutely critical that you establish a sound posture to start with, and that's true of any athletic event. So the head's got to be very still and basically everything lined up. So if you were to draw a line through, an imaginary line through the walker when they're walking, you'd want the head, the shoulder, the hip and the ankle joints all in line with a very slight inclination forward. I think once you've got back and they can maintain that posture whilst they're out doing the kilometres and doing their reps on the track, then they'll gradually acquire those skills and strengths that will overlay the program and allow them to do more and more kilometres. Basically, it makes them more efficient. So they've got to learn to be efficient, but they've got to have good posture first. So that's an absolute critical one.
The arm and shoulder action needs to be developed correctly as it controls the balance as well as the speed and stride length of race walkers. Compared to distance running, the arm action in race walking is much more vigorous and can be quite fatiguing, particularly if not performed correctly. Also, the angle at the elbow should stay more consistently at around 90 degrees throughout the swing and should not open up during the backswing as in the sprinting arm action. Often a race walker will hold their arms too high. This can be corrected by having the athlete drape a long sleeve jumper over their shoulders. The athlete holds onto the sleeves with the arms held at around 90 degrees. The athlete then swings their arms through the range without letting go or reducing the tension on the sleeve. This drill may need to be practiced until the athlete is comfortable. This can also be used if the athlete has their arms in the 90-degree angle and drops them to 120 degrees in the backward swing, and if the athlete chops their forearms downwards. The athlete needs to have relaxed shoulders with no tension around the neck and shoulder area. As the athlete fatigues, their shoulders become too rigid. Asking them to circle their shoulders a few times may help. This exercise can be incorporated into a training program as a relaxation aid. Good posture also includes a reduction of forward shoulder swing. A good coaching cue is to ask the athlete to keep the shoulders low and relaxed, with a strong but fluid movement. A race walker needs a smooth, rhythmic stride pattern with a continuous contact with the ground. A straight leg when it is in the upright position, and a strong rear leg drive action. The total action of the legs can be divided into 3 phases. The double support phase when both feet are momentarily on the ground, the single support phase when only one foot has contact with the ground, and the recovery phase. The double support phase occurs for only a split second when the heel of the lead foot makes contact with the ground, while the toe of the rear foot is still on the ground. The single support phase starts when the toe of the rear leg leaves the ground. The forward support occurs from heel contact until the leg passes under the centre of gravity. The backward support starts as the leg passes under the centre of gravity and lasts until the toe leaves the ground. The recovery phase occurs simultaneously with the single support phase. The knee of the rear leg is bent to 90 degrees to allow for a rapid recovery, and the hip of that leg drops and reaches its lowest point as it passes the supporting leg. The action of the feet during the leg phases must be correct for the leg action to be successful. During the recovery phase of the leg, the foot remains relaxed with the toes angled towards the ground. The toes come up when the preparation is made for heel contact. Both feet must travel in a straight line with full extension and flexion of the ankle joint. Any deviation from this foot action will result in a reduction in stride length. With beginners who often lack abdominal and lower back strength, it is better for the athlete to use a more upright posture for the trunk. As strength is gained, the athlete should be steered towards a more effective racing posture, which is a 3 to 5 degree forward lean. It is important to note, however, that this lean should be from the ankles and involving a whole body inclination. Often athletes will create a forward lean by bending at the waist, and this is counterproductive to good performance. This slight lean forward assists the body in reaching higher levels of speed. It is imperative that the hips do not swing from side to side, as this will reduce speed and shorten stride length. It also affects balance and arm action, and will possibly inflame the hip socket. This aspect is often misunderstood, with many people falsely believing that side-to-side motion of the hips is desirable. It is the backward and forward motion that determines stride length. Once the rear foot leaves the ground and starts its forward swing, the hip of the swinging foot is lowered and moved forward. The hip of the leg, which is in contact with the ground, must remain firm and not push out to the side. This will require good levels of hip strength, which can be developed using some of the drills outlined in this section. It is often falsely believed that race walkers need to have unusually flexible or hypermobile hips, but this is not necessarily the case.
Every athlete has their own level of flexibility and range of mobility. Some are very good, some are naturally flexible, some are very poor. Traditionally, distance athletes have poor hamstring flexibility. Most of them can't touch their toes and are very tight and stiff through the hip flexors. So I think you've really got to weigh up with the particular athlete you've got how much flexibility you have to work on, whether it's more hamstring related or whether they need to work a little bit more hip mobility. I think it's a little bit of a misconception that you need to have this massive amount of hip mobility. You don't to be a race walker. Sure, you have to be flexible, sure you need some mobility through there, but you can almost become hypermobile.
The refinement in technique can take place over time, and it is important to keep initial instructions simple and consistent, allowing young walkers to enjoy their training. Training volume should be progressed gradually, and the focus should be on quality rather than accumulating excessive mileage.
I think we've had a disease in walking for years where there's been a philosophy that I've got to get my kilometres up and I've got to do as many kilometres as I can, but a lot of it becomes just junk mileage. The critical thing is the speed that you walk a lot of those distances at, a lot of those training sessions at, because at the end of the day, the speeds that these walkers walk at, elite walkers walk at over 10 kilometres, 20 kilometres and 50 kilometres is unbelievably quick. So you need to be training that the whole time. For younger athletes, I think starting off 30 to 40 to 50 kilometres and gradually build up. But again, it's what you can handle. And for younger athletes, they will start getting sore shins probably because there's a lot of new movements going on and they're going to get sore muscles. So you really have to let their bodies dictate, and that's probably the most critical thing. And even with elite athletes, how much training they do. And it might be just 3 days a week to start with, build up to 4 days a week and then 5 days a week. And as they get more and more experienced, can handle loadings, you can build up to 2 sessions a day. But that's only for the elite walkers and those who've had good years of experience.